everybody. Welcome to the last edition of Lobby Talk for 2019. My name is Ron Pierce. I'm the president and CEO of RSA Consulting Group. So we ended last week, committee week number 6 of 6 in Tallahassee. Wanted to kind of give you a quick snapshot of where we are in the process. So last week, and we've talked about this on previous editions of Lobby Talk, you haven't seen a lot of policy bills moving through the process in the House and Senate, particularly on the House side. What you did see last week is a number of appropriations, local projects that moved on the House side. What that means is those projects are now eligible to be a part of the initial House budget. There was literally hundreds of local projects that were heard last week in respective appropriations subcommittees. Do all of those projects end up in the budget? Probably not, but it allows them to be eligible, number one, to be in the budget, potentially on the House side, but also positions those projects very well for the conference process later on in session. So where we are from a policy standpoint is with not a lot of bills that have moved, what you're going to see is a lot of pressure on subcommittees, particularly on the House side, during the first 4 weeks of session. I think you're going to see a lot of very long agendas in the first 4 weeks of session. You're going to see a lot of bills move all at once. And I think what that means ultimately is with everything moving at once, again, long agendas, and I think B, potentially more importantly, is you'll see a lot of these projects move one or two committee stop and then potentially end up as a larger package. You've seen that a lot over the last couple of years is instead of having 10 or 12 education bills move, you end up with 3 or 4 that move with a number of different issues, education issues in there. I think you'll see the same thing this year in criminal justice, healthcare, and education. So it's been a lot of pressure on the subcommittees to move a lot of different issues early on during the session process. Want to talk about one specific issue I think is going to be a major driver during the 2020 session. And one of the things we're going to try to do during some of the future editions of Lobby Talk is talk a little bit about issues that are major drivers and that are issues that have a major policy or appropriations impact on the state of Florida. This week we want to focus on gaming. So from a gaming standpoint, there's a couple different things we want to highlight. Is number one, Senator Brandis has already filed a bill relating to live sports betting here in the state of Florida. 2 years ago, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the federal government cannot prohibit individual states from offering live sports betting. Since that time, 16 individual states have authorized some version of live sports betting in the respective states. I think you're going to see the state of Florida have that debate during the 2020 session. Does it end up potentially as an individual standalone bill? Does it end up as a part of a package? I think that's yet to be determined. But there'll be a couple of different drivers that I think impact that. Number one is Amendment 3. Amendment 3 passed during the 2018 election cycle, which basically states is if the legislature is going to expand gaming at any level potentially, it would require the voters to come back and have a 60% approval of that expansion of gaming. So I think that could impact the Senator Brandis standalone bills with regard to live sports betting. So I think there's going to be a differing of opinion of how Amendment 3 potentially impacts live sports betting. And I think it'll be fascinating to kind of watch that debate play out during the 2020 session. I think the other issue is Amendment 13 passed during 2018, which is basically going to eliminate live greyhound racing in the state of Florida and the potential impact that's going to have on pari-mutuels and more importantly, how pari-mutuels are going to then be able to still offer card rooms and some of the slot machines in South Florida. The Florida House actually last week had a gaming committee meeting, and they spent a lot of time on the impact on how Amendment 3 and Amendment 13 could impact gaming discussions in Tallahassee during the 2020 session. I think the Florida House is going to want some safeguards put in place to ensure that pari-mutuels are protected at some level during some of these gaming discussions. And I think that was definitely a takeaway from last week during the gaming committee meeting. I think the other issue that's going to be heavily debated and discussed in Tallahassee this year is potentially the Seminole Compact with the Seminole Indian tribe here in the state of Florida. Earlier this year, the Seminole Compact has basically been voided for a number of reasons, which we won't get into in this edition of Lobby Talk. But the punchline is last year, the Florida Senate was in the process of negotiating a new Seminole Compact with the Indian tribe. The Florida House were part of the discussions, as well as the governor's office and as well as the federal government. I think that we're really close to getting a deal done. They didn't quite make it to the finish line. I think you're going to see those negotiations renewed. Last year, as a part of the compact, the new compact that was being negotiated, it would have potentially included live sports betting, roulette, and craps. The current compact to the state of Florida would mean about $300 million in revenue that's not being collected today. If you negotiate a new compact that includes live sports betting, roulette, and craps, that would probably more than double. And that would be on a recurring basis. So that's recurring revenue to the state of Florida. The governor, with his recommended budget that came out 2 weeks ago, did not include any gaming money as a part of his recommended budget. I suspect when the House and Senate releases their recommended budgets in early February, once again, they're not going to include any dollars from gaming as a part of their respective budgets. So if the Florida House and Senate could work on a deal with the Seminole Indian tribe that has a new deal that they can get the governor and the federal government to approve, that would be recurring dollars they'd be able to spend during the 2020-21 year on education, healthcare, and other major needs we have as a state. So at the end of the day, if I had to put my money where I think where all this ends at is, I think it ends up as part of the Seminole Compact. I think passing individual bills was somewhat difficult. I think negotiating a compact and giving the exclusive rights for live sports betting and for roulette and craps, I think is something that's going to be negotiated by the House and Senate. I know that's something that President Galvano and his teams worked very hard on over the last couple of years. I think it's something that the Senate really wants to try to bring in for a landing during the 2020 session. So session starts on January the 14th. That will be our next edition of Lobby Talk. We'll be from Tallahassee, kind of sharing with you what happened during the first week and kind of looking ahead, and also talking about other issues that could potentially impact the 2020 session. So in the interim, the RSA team would like to wish all of you a very blessed and joyous holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you next time from Tallahassee. Thank you.